Hello, today we're going to do lesson 50 on completing the square. Now remember that a perfect square in algebra is when we have a binomial, either a sum or a subtraction, to the second power. And that has a formula that it is that the first one square plus or minus, depending on the sign that we have there, and then 2 times these two numbers, so 2xy plus the y squared. And the same for subtraction. Now, if we look for these characteristics in this trinomial, we will see that we do not get a perfect square. The first one is a perfect square, and the second is a perfect square. But if we multiply 2 times the roots of those two perfect squares, we're not going to get 6, we would get 4. So in this case, that is not a perfect square. I want to complete it to make it a perfect square. Now, how do we do this? Remember, we've done completing the square before, but now we're going to use it to solve. So what we want to do is leave the x's alone. So we'll leave x squared plus 6x plus something equals 4, passing that -4 to +4, and then we're going to add the same thing that we added on the left. Now, how do we decide what to add on the left? What we do is something that I call here like the corner, and what we do is that we put the b here, the 6, times 1/2 square. If I do that, 6 times 1/2 is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So I'll put 9 here, and I'll put 9 here. Now this is now a perfect square. So I can go from here to here. I can factorize it. And the way we factorize it is we put the parentheses square, and then the square root of the first one, which is x, the square root of the second one, which is 3, and then the sign that is here, so in this case, plus. On the other side, we're also going to simplify, and that is 13. Now notice that this is very similar now at this point. This is very similar to what we did in lesson 46 or 47, which is that to solve this, I need to leave the x alone. So we need to pass this exponent 2 to get the square root of 13. And then the 2 that is adding is going to subtract. So it's minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 13. And that's our answer. So again, you've done completing the square before, but now we're going to use it to solve. Let's look at this other example. The first thing we want to do is put it in order. Because we want to solve, we want to leave the x by itself. So we'll put x squared plus 2x plus something equals 5 plus something. Remember that we add the same both on the left and the right, because when we do that, we're not changing the value, we're just changing how it looks. Because in an equation, if you add the same on both sides, you're not doing anything. So that's what we want. Okay, now we do our corner. Now what is the b? The b is this 2. So I'm going to put 2 times 1/2 squared. 2 times 1/2 is 2 halves, which is 1, and 1 square is 1. So I'll put a 1 here and here. When we factorize these, we're going to get, again, a parenthesis with an exponent 2. And then we're going to get the square root of the first one and the square root of the second one. And then a plus in the middle. And then 5 plus 1, which is 6. Now to solve, we pass the exponent 2 to do a square root. So we have the plus or minus square root of 6. And then the 1 goes to subtract. So we have -1 plus or minus the square root of 6. And that is our answer. Very, very simple exercises. In this third example, we have to do the same. So we're going to put the x's by themselves. So I have to pass the 5x that is adding to the other side to subtract. And then in this case, since I already have the -5 on the other side, I'm just going to keep it there because that's where I want it. And so now we're going to do the corner. I did not leave enough space for the corner, so I'm going to do it here small. So I'm going to do it here small. Is the 5 times 1/2 square. And 5 times 1/2 is 5/2, and that square is 25/4. And the same here, 25/4. Now, if we factorize that, we're going to have a parenthesis square. And remember, the sign that we choose is the one here, so we put the minus. The square root of x squared is x, and the square root of 25/4 is 5/2. On the other side, we have to add that, and to do so, we need to do common denominator. So I'm going to multiply the -5 times 4, which is -20 plus 25/4. And then if we continue, we have to get the plus or minus square root of that, which is 25 minus 20 is 5/4. Now that -5/2 is subtracting, so we're going to pass it to add, and then plus or minus. In this case, we're only going to have the square root of 5, and then on the bottom, we can actually simplify that. The square root of 4 is 2, and that's our answer. And that's it. That's the lesson. Notice that it's very simple, very repetitive, the same process every time. So just be careful to put it in order first and add those 2 spots there, like the lines that I add. Then work in the corners so that your mind remembers what you have to do. And then just factorize and simplify so that then you can solve. Okay? If you have any questions, please write them in the comments and go do some practice. I'll see you in the next video.